And we just don't know exactly how it's all going to shake out. But it's just this departure from what you've been doing, that the rules and regulations can be changed at any time. You changed them last week for a good reason. And we hate to sign a document that states that we agree to something that can be changed at any moment. And that's kind of where we are, and I hope that answered your question a little bit. Any other questions?
That's good enough for now, thank you. Mr. Arscamp, we're going to refer this to the general manager. We'd like for you to take his concerns under advisement.
Yes, sir.
I think I see we have new legal counsel with us today. Maybe break him in, refer that over to him, give us an opinion on that. We'll work together on this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Chris Schoeneman, manager of the Seminole Salton Sea National Wildlife Refuge. Regarding the equitable distribution plan for water for the refuge, we have a number of legal obligations that we need to maintain that, for the most part, I think we can work with the distribution plan as far as the refuge is concerned. We're legally obligated to manage the habitat in the most biologically sound way possible. We are legally obligated to maintain habitat to keep waterfowl on the refuge and off of private ground. Sometimes we're more successful at that than others. And we're also legally obligated to provide habitat for human clapper rails. You might be familiar with that as the district enters into this managed marsh program. And that's the water category where the refuge ends up falling short. Under the equitable distribution plan, we will not have enough water to maintain habitat for those birds that I have to manage for, just as the district is getting into that business. And so I'm requesting at least for that, it's 189 acres that we have, an environmental classification of water, or whatever you want to call it, so that we can maintain that habitat at the same water volume that the district will be managing habitat for. Phrasing it that the district is going to be managing it probably is not accurate, but I think you know what I mean. Anyhow, that's it. Any questions?
Have you put that in a form of writing and addressed it to the general manager?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't. I can't. I will.
Good.
Okay.
Good evening, Tom Bursick speaking. And this evening, a couple of times I'm going to come up here, I'm going to talk about and hand you documents that you already have. But it's a lot easier, I think, for me to give them to you than to assume you have them available at your fingertips. So in this first one about public comment, it's not about an agenda item, but it actually tracks some of the comments you just heard. So I'm just going to hand this package of 6 copies, one for each of you and one for your general manager. And what this is, you may or may not recognize it, was a proposal when you had an RFQ for ways of managing your water distribution system in 2007. And this was one of the rejected ones, and our office had a role in helping put this one together. And I'm not up here to tell you I told you so, although sometimes maybe I do. The point here is you had options and you still have options. And I know you're not going to read the whole thing. What I want you to look at are pages 3 and 23. Page 3 has a graphic, has a chart about how the water management system would work. And if you notice at the center of it, It's an implementation committee comprised of technically knowledgeable local farmers. This proposal was very different than the one you ultimately accepted. It was to work on the ground. It was to work for the farming community. Whether it was, who knows if it was perfect or not perfect or what else it may have needed to do, but it was a different orientation. It wasn't designed to work well for IID. It was designed, however, to work with IID's software and hardware. You'll find the technical specs elsewhere. But it was a very different orientation. You had this opportunity. You chose to go a different way. The other page you may want to look at is page 23, which tells you that the cost to IID for this proposal, there was no licensing cost whatsoever. This is not a profit-making venture. This is something so that it works. So I'm just pointing that out. There are options. There were options. There continue to be options. And when your general manager looks into the issues the farming community is raising, your general manager needs to be aware of these kinds of options and whatever else is out there. And another point here is that the individuals who put this proposal together, you'll find their professional qualifications in there, have been through the drought, the 77 drought. Pretty much everybody, well, many people, perhaps none not in this room, but in many other places, understood that a drought was imminent years ago. And these individuals who put this together also understood that because they had been through the drought 30 years ago. And it seems that IID is coming to the drought as a crisis. You can get through it. The worst thing that can happen is that you fail during the drought and a third party comes in and takes away all the water management, by fiat, whether it's the state, whether it's an outside party, whatever it is. Our clients are trying to avoid that. I may have used this analogy before, but they can't just throw their 40 or 100 acres or 200 acres in the back of their pickup truck and go somewhere else. They're kind of stuck. So they're trying to make the best of the situation, and they keep hoping that you all will reciprocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments? At this time, we'll entertain comments from the board. We'll start on the left this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks. The only thing I want to say is I have asked the general manager if at the next board meeting, which is a week from today, we put an item on the agenda dealing with water cards. So I feel that, I know that Farm Bureau had their meeting yesterday. They had an attorney there. From what I understand, the attorney told them not to sign the water cards because you're giving up your water rights. I've talked to Mr. Garber about it. He said that's not true. So I think the best thing we can do is get this water card deal on the agenda, get it out here in the open so it gets discussed. If people want to bring their lawyers, they can bring their lawyers. And get it out here, get it on top of the table so we talk about it. So that's the request that I've made. The other thing I want to say is that today, Carlos and Bill Malone and I met up at the Stockman's Club at Aaron Myola's request to meet with the cattle feeders and the dairy people. There was about 35 to 40 people in the room, and we listened to what they had to say, and they presented some ideas that they would like to stay at the third tier as separate and not join up with ag at this point in time. So we're going to take that under consideration, and there's a few other things that they put down on paper and gave to us that we're going to take into consideration. And I thought it was an excellent meeting, well thought out on their part. We were only there for a very short period of time, but I think they're taking this whole thing very seriously and putting a lot of good thought into what they're trying to do. And so I thought the meeting was, at least from Carl's and my standpoint, a very good meeting. I'm very happy to see that people are putting their heads together, trying to figure out how to work with the IID to make things work. And that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.